Welcome to your Joyful Riches podcast, where you gain precious tips and tools for creating the result that you love and thriving through the journey, even if you are facing adversities. This Conversations is delivered alongside the International Childhood Cancer Charity, where we empower, in addition to emotionally and physically heal disadvantaged children with cancer globally, one child at a time. And for today, we are so thrilled and so honored to have Julie, aka the Brain Lady, with us. Welcome to the podcast, Julie. It's such a delight to have you here. Would you care to share with our audience what is it that you do?
Well, a bunch of different brain stuff, but really I help women primarily deal with or using the power of neuroscience and neuropsychology. I guide ambitious, high achieving women to achieve more in life and in business and just feel better within their own skin and access their natural brain talents. And then I also work with corporates and help them bring in corporate wellness from that neuroscience and neuropsychological point of view to create psychologically safe work environments.
Oh wow, that is super awesome. So what that's just not the most common occupations, I mean, you have like neuroscientist researchers, and then of course you have people who are like neurosurgeons and things. But what you do is just not the most common occupations. Did you grow up like, okay, I'm gonna formulate, combine neuropsychology and neuroscience and all these things or did you arrive in these occupations with a journey? What's the story behind it?
Well, it's interesting because no, as a child, it's not like I ever grew up thinking neuroscience. It wasn't, courses that I even really thought about taking in college as I was going through school. But what I was interested in was natural health. So all through my teens, I was very into natural health and I ate healthy and I worked out and I exercised and I did all of that. And so in my late 20s, I decided I wanted to be able to get a degree in natural health. And that's when I started studying through a natural health college. And one of the required courses was psychoneuroimmunology, which is this big long word that just means the connection between your thoughts, how your thoughts can change your brain chemistry, and then that brain chemistry then can either reduce the effectiveness of your immune system or improve it. And I was fascinated because it was like, oh, look at all this scientific research. It was so cool. So at that point, I was like, well, what else can science tell us about our brain as it is connected to our life? Not the deep stuff of Alzheimer's or dementia or traumatic brain injuries, but more like, how can I be a better person myself? How can I build better relationships? How can I understand people better? How can I be more comfortable in my own skin? All with that power of neuroscience. And so that's when I started just studying everything I could regarding that, all these different studies. And I kind of aggregate that information. I take those pieces from the studies and I bring them down into helping individuals improve their lives and relationships.
That is awesome. So kind of like the practical applications, because sometimes it's like when we talk about brain and neuroscience, people kind of like, oh my God, it's so way out there. And it's like, okay, yes, it's important. Like you said, okay, yes, it's important if somebody having dementia or Alzheimer or
Right. Yeah.
traumatic brain injury or all these things. But most of the time we didn't think about it, like you said, in the practical applications in the daily life. And I think a lot of times we don't even realize that. Would you give us some example of that? How kind of like how the brain, like you said, it's your thoughts change your thoughts change actually physically. Okay, first question. Your thought actually physically change your brain chemistry. So kind of like if you're thinking there is a monster versus there is a fairy, it changed your brain chemistry.
Absolutely. And that's what's fascinating. So yes, it's taking taking that making practical application of the complicated neuroscience. So when you understand how there's a recent book that I just finished is called The Power of Words. And no, it's Words Can Change Your Brain. I always switch the subtitle. And it literally just dozens of brain scans that have brain scan studies that have shown how if you are using words like love, peace, harmony, it actually produces positive brain chemistry that will, and there's can actually rewards, victory, those types of words can actually produce oxytocin in the brain. Oxytocin in the brain is the bonding chemical, right? So if you're using positive words with key people in your life, if a leader at a corporation is using positive words, if an entrepreneur is using positive words when they're in that coaching, they're actually helping the receiver of the message produce chemistry in their brain that's going to link you together, that's going to make them trust you, that's going to make them feel close to you. Whereas if I use negative words, if we as individuals use too many negative words in our vernacular, well, now we literally are shutting down, we're engaging the fear center in the brain, we're reducing the production of stress hormones, and we're shutting down the prefrontal cortex, which is where higher thinking is, right? So if you are, again, in a relationship or you're a leader and you're using a lot of negatives, you're literally shifting the receiver's brain into a place where they can't think. You're causing them to go into fight or flight or freeze mode, right? All with just words. And this is all proven on these PET scans and SPECT scans and functional MRI scans. Right? These are all just amazing. That technology has given us such a wonderful window on the brain.
So it's kind of like, like in the past where people say, that people punishing people, you don't exactly punish, but you reprimand when it's the workplace, or, you punish a kid or something like that, or you kind of like with your significant other, you might be like, oh my God, what happened? You take the throats again, yeah, and those things, right? And so it's actually kind of like backfire instead of producing what it's supposed to.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why there's certain techniques, right? For leaders, if I'm talking to a leader and they have a performance review and it's like, oh, this employee, they didn't do good on their they have some areas they need to work on. So how do you deliver what would be considered a negative message in a positive way? Well, there's a whole technique of being able to sandwich that message in between a lot of positive here and a lot of positive there. And it's the same with with kids. And I didn't know all this when my kids were little. I wish I did. But now I can go back and, tell them I'm sorry. Now they're in their 30s. But, you can kind of do the same thing and help them understand that it's not that they're a bad person. It's the activity that they were engaged in that is going to have unfavorable outcomes. So in order to avoid those unfavorable outcomes, we need to do these positive things. And that's why you're always leaning into the positive. So you're always creating a positive self-image and a positive brain chemistry, right? So that the outcome is favorable as opposed to an individual shutting down in a corporation, or as an entrepreneur, you losing those sales, right? Because it's all part of this affecting the brain chemistry in the right way.
So I just have to ask. Based on your knowledge and all this, what do you say to a significant other? And all the men and women can relate to this. If you live with somebody, to the significant other who forget to take the trash out for about 2,000 times that you told them, or to put the dishes in the dishwasher. What do you say to them such that it reinforces them to to do it instead of, honey, you did it again. That sounds like a negative way to do.
Yeah. So the first thing that you always want to do, and this is why we created what's called the brain personality assessment, which is a very, very comprehensive personality assessing tool that deals with that neuroscience piece, right? And the idea is to really understand the brain wiring of the people you engage with. And no matter, I'm not talking sexual preference here or sexual identity. I'm talking about literally if the Y chromosome is present, that brain is going to develop differently in utero than the brain if it has two X chromosomes. So if it's a female, it's going to develop differently than if that Y chromosome is present and it's a male. And that adjusts wiring, right? So there's certain things in that conversation. Most of the time that hiccup comes from the male female interaction in a situation. And even if it's a same sex partner, you're still going to oftentimes have one that thinks with more of a masculine brain. And so the key is understanding that the masculine brain, they need specifics and they need a smaller list. So in situations like that, I always tell my ladies, you have to get their attention first, which means you have to make sure they're not watching TV, they're not typing on their computer, they're not playing on their phone, they're not barbecuing or messing with the car, right? They are making that eye contact with you where you're actually looking, you are the center focus. And then in that very positive way, you let them know that you need them, that you need their help. Men love to be needed. Men need to be needed. And when they feel they're needed, they're more motivated. So as opposed to saying, take out the trash before you go, you can literally address it by, I love you so much. You are such an asset to me. And I really, really need your help right now. I am so overwhelmed. Could you do this one little thing for me? It would take a lot off my shoulders. Can you take the trash out as you're leaving, right? So the whole message shifts and you're praising them in the beginning. Praise, and I want it to be a genuine praise. Everybody can spot false praise, right? Everybody can spot that. So you want to prep your brain by reminding yourself how much you appreciate this partner, how much you appreciate what they do, right? And then and let that be the motivation behind the message and how much you need their help, how much you need them in your life. And that's going to change. What it's going to do is it's going to shift your body language. It's going to shift your facial expressions. It's going to shift the tone of your voice before you're actually asking them to do what they do. So now the message is going to be received on a completely different plane than as if you go, hey, don't forget to take the garbage out on your way out. And you don't even know if they were listening, right? You know what I mean? So you got to think about the brains of the people that you're communicating with, right? And it's the same with parents and kids. You have to remember, kids are not playing with a full deck. Like literally, their brain is not completely wired yet. So at times, especially with our teenagers, because subconsciously, we look at them and they're tall and they're big and they're looking like, oh, they're moving into adulthood. So we kind of think they can think like an adult, and it's not going to happen. It's just not there, right? Literally, the wiring is just not there. So keeping those things in mind and always thinking receiver, not sender, just stopping and thinking before you do that communication is going to be huge. Most of us don't think. I mean, let's face it, most of us just do. We just do. Our brain just works on programming. It just goes. We don't stop and think. But when we really stop and think, it shifts the way we send a message. Therefore, it's going to shift the way the message is received. And that includes, I might add, your messaging with yourself, right? This has a powerful impact on your self-view, your self-talk, your self-language, which is incredibly powerful in shifting your mindset.
So that includes messaging with yourself. Now, I have two questions with that. So the first one, I love the examples that you give, kind of like shift the energy. One thing that I always find it very interesting is people keep saying, and you see this from like every other, like 90% of things and people who want you to remember. And they say, don't forget this and don't forget that. Well, what's the word in there?
Don't.
No, that is forget. And you can the words make a difference, then you just keep telling people, like, sometimes people don't even hear the first word, or your brain, like you said, if you're not focused. So I'm like, why would you ask people to remember if you don't
Exactly.
remember, right? And it's like, don't forget this, don't forget. I'm so like, use one word called remember.
Yeah.
Remember.
That's huge, especially when you're saying don't forget, because the brain doesn't process don't.
Negative.
All it processes is that forget. So sure, I can forget anything. No problem doing that.
I'm happy to forget taking the test out.
Yeah. So you always tell people what you want them to do, or tell yourself what you want yourself to do, as opposed to the action you don't want it to take. Because the brain that message does not transmit the way you think it's transmitting. So it's always that positive. I am going to accomplish this. This is what I want to do. These are my goals for 2024 that I will achieve, right? You're always on that positive, as opposed to the the negative, and in the negative, in that when you aren't necessarily hitting the mark where you want, well, why can't I do that? I can't believe I'm such a loser. But your brain listens to every single thing you are thinking in your mind. You got to be careful what you're saying.
And that leads us to my second questions, actually, with this part of the conversations. This is the delivered alongside the International Childhood Cancer Charity, where a lot of people naturally with cancer, children or adult, that's quite an adversity and a challenge. And perhaps there is an audience here whose the challenge is not cancer, but economy, or relationship, illness, other form of illness, anything. The world nowadays is an interesting place for many, many, many of us. And so with this science that you have, with the knowledge that you have, what are one or two tips that you have for people if they're just kind of like in such a state where everything seemingly hopeless? You tried everything, and you tried every doctor, and you seem to try everything you possibly able to if you're an entrepreneur, and it's just not working out. You just keep hearing one after another bad news. What are some tips that you might have?
So I always tell people one of the habits that I really want people to develop, and I think if everybody did this more, everything would shift, right? Everything would shift. And that is thinking, right? Engaging thought. So one of my pattern in the morning, what I do, I get up, my husband generally makes the coffee, I feed the dogs, and then we go sit in a quiet place. It's either if the weather's okay, we'll go sit out, out on the deck. If not, we'll be sitting in the house. But we always sit. He reads me a scripture. We talk about that for a minute, and then it's pretty much quiet. And during that time is when I do my mindful meditation, right? That's when I am really thinking. I am being completely present, completely appreciative of everything that I'm feeling in that moment. And this is no technology during this time. Very, very important. Put the technology away. You don't want any distractions. You want to be completely in your thought process. And then you're going to do your appreciation, your gratitude right off the bat, first thing in the morning. Yes, do it at night before you go to bed, but do it in the morning. Set your brain in the positive in that morning, right in the morning. And then you're going to set your 3 top intentions, because this is going to help you achieve what you want to achieve with a much greater level of success. I always tell people your top intention in your relationships, your top intention in your personal care, and your top intention in your business. When you do that, you're probably going to hit that top intention every single day. And because you've done that, because you make sure that your relationships are going to enrich, because that top relationship, whether that's texting your mother, texting your mother-in-law, telling your, like, literally looking at your spouse in the face and saying, your significant other, I love you and I appreciate you, like really making that connection, your relationship's going to improve. When you do that self-care intention, you physically are going to improve. When you do that business or career intention and you achieve one every single day, how much everybody's heard that 1%, right? If you can just improve 1% a day, you look at how much you're going to improve over the year. So in entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs, that one intention could be, I'm going to focus on reaching my top 3 prospects today. That's all. That's the only intention you're going to set first thing in the morning. Now, chances are you're going to be on such fire because you did that. Now you're going to get so much more accomplished. And there's lots of little tips to improve your productivity and your focus and reduce the distraction. But that's the biggest key, is if you can start every single day off that way, you will find everything starts to shift for you. Everything starts to shift by engaging mindfulness and intentions right off the bat.
I love that. That's kind of like sometimes we start our day, and you point out the beautiful things just now, to think, but also be present when you're thinking, because it's not thinking on the run while you are on basically fight or flight mode, and you're kind of like you're not realizing it, but you're basically thinking in not the best state where your brain not. Yeah. And then the other part is, I love that. It's sometimes we start, like with a whole long list of laundry list. Yes, the 20 thing I got to do. And this is something I teach my client too. They're like, oh my God, I'm barely able to with grief. Sometimes it's very tiring and consuming energetically too. I just like, I could barely get out of bed and I got to do that. I'm like, oh, hello. Even if you're not grieving or you're not ill, that is, like 20 things to do. It's like, what the heck? So I love that. It's like you say, top 3, and it's just one for each most important sector of your life. And from there, you can go to the next, and you're not starting your day. You're starting your day with more, sounds like in a much better state, with kind of like confidence and calmness and with the appreciations. That is so beautiful. Now, you mentioned a couple things just now. I think it's called brain personality assessment, something like that. Is that something people can discover more about by connecting with you? How do people learn about all these wonderful brain things that you do?
Well, if you want to take the brain personality assessment, it is available in a digital form. So you can go to brainpersonalityassessment.com and you can get it there. And if you want, put Brain VIP in the coupon code, and it's only $9 or $10 or whatever. So brainpersonalityassessment.com, Brain VIP code. That gives you a very comprehensive 27-page report on your neuroscience person, your brain strengths, lots of tips in there. There's even tips. One of the facets is your emotional tone. So where are you at and where do you want to be? So that's the assessment. And then there's so many different things that we can do. It just depends on what each individual needs in their life. So I have 2 podcasts. I have the Women Excelling Everywhere podcast and the brainladyspeaks.com. Those are the podcasts. And if you want to chat, like if you just want to chat and say, Julie, because I've got tons of free downloads too. But if you just want to chat and pick the Brain Lady's brain, you can go to chatwithbrainladyjulie.com and just grab a 30-minute complimentary consultation. And yeah, I'll send you an intake form and we'll talk about whatever it is you want to focus on. So
That
lots of ways to connect. And of course, please, please, please connect on Instagram, Facebook. Love to stay connected on all of those platforms. You can find me, Brain Lady Julie, just about anywhere.
that is awesome. So that plenty of way to learn more from Julie. Definitely, as you can see already, it's just full of awesome informations and the two podcasts. And you have a book coming up as well, right?
Yeah. So what I did is because I've done the podcasts, I've met wonderful women like yourself, right? Amazing women over the years who have amazing stories of how they took their passion and they were successful at bringing it to fruition, or just what their passion was, and tips about how to create that for yourself. And I was like, I want to bring these stories together. So the book is Women Excelling Everywhere: What Sparked Their Passion and Led to Their Success. And that is going to be, we're bringing in co-authors right now, and it'll be 20 to 25 amazing co-authors sharing their stories. And that'll be released in digitally February 24th. And then we're doing a Women Excelling Everywhere Summit the first week, the 5th, 6th, and 7th of March, leading right up to March 8th, which is International Women's Day. So it's all focused on just helping women excel wherever they're at in their life or demographically in the world. Just, yeah, big focus there. And if you want to achieve your goals, let me tell you, we got a real fun 3-day goal hacking challenge that's taking place in January. So I can tell you about that too, but I'm telling you about too many things. So
No, that's okay. Well, tell us about the goal hacking challenge. Everybody's have get start the new year with wonderful intention. So tell us about the goal hacking challenge.
yeah, so this is using neuroscience to help you achieve your goals, because the figures are staggering, right? Out of the people who set their goals, 81% don't ever, even within the first 2 weeks, walk away from their goals, don't even keep doing them. And out of the other 90%, like 5%, 1%, it's a very small percentage, actually hit their goal by the end of the year. So the key is understanding why that happens. And so much of it has to do with neuroscience. It literally has to do with your brain not supporting you in your goals because it thinks that goal is scary. And so that's when distraction comes in. That's when procrastination steps up. It all has to do with really the brain. So in that goal hacks, the neuroscience behind achieving your goals is about that. It's how do you, in 3 mornings, we're doing an hour each morning, and we're just giving you the basics of, look, if you do these things in 2024, you will achieve your goal. So that's what that's all about. And we're really excited about that. So that's at mindbrainconnections.com.
So that is super awesome because so many times people not knowing, not having this information, not realizing that it's the brain, and to a degree sometimes with being grief specialist, if the heart not in coherence as well. But of course, it's the brain, and so many times people end up, the 95+% who is not accomplishing their goal at the end of the year. What do many people do? They're kind of like, oh my God, I'm just such a loser. Oh, how am I not doing this again? And then it's turned into a negative things to ourselves. And from what you're saying, all these negative things, it's just kind of like when it get worse and worse. So that is super awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. As we complete these conversations, is there one final message for our audience?
Oh, you know what? I would say really embrace your brain. So often we just beat ourselves up for things that we're not naturally gifted at. And so we overstretch ourselves to try to achieve that thing instead of shifting our mindset and going, how can I bring what I'm naturally gifted at and shine at that? Stop beating yourself up for these other things, but learn how to shine in who you are and in what those gifts are. And that's so incredibly important Because when you do that, it all goes back to that positive negative, right? You're not doing the negative by beating yourself up, but you're embracing the positive by embracing your natural gifts. And when you do that, everything starts to shift. You start walking into rooms, you're just glowing, right? Because it's more than confidence. It's this internal acceptance of the beautiful brain that you have, and then bringing that into the world. It's like everything shifts for you.
That is so awesome. It's more than confidence. It's an internal acceptance of what you have. It's kind of like if you are a sapphire, which can be just an amazing thing, then embrace being a sapphire and your blue glow versus trying to be a diamond and you stress yourself out forever. And so
Exactly.
I love that. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for all the amazing knowledge and tips that you shared with us. It's such an honor and a delight to have you with us today, Julie. And for you, my friend, who are watching this, who are listening to this, please share one or two gold nugget in the comment from things you just gained from Julie, so we can continue learning from each other. And please share this with your friends and families as well, because almost all of us have want to accomplish new things in 2024. So do join Julie in her challenge, as well as to be able to to just be more at ease, to be more at ease, and at the same time accomplishing that what it is that you want, not just more at ease and not accomplish. We want to be able to be more at ease and accomplish what you love. And so please share this with your friend and family. And this is Dr. BirgitteTan, your grief specialist and founder and president of the International Childhood Cancer Charity. I thank you very, very much for joining us today, and I look forward to see you again very